Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 199. It is brought to you this week by our sponsors, Pingdom, Smile, and Hover. I'm your host, Stephen Hackett, and I'm joined, as most weeks, by my two handsome, intelligent co-hosts. We have Michael Hurley. How are you?
I'm good. I like that you say hello to the listeners when you start the show. It's very nice. Very
you want to
cordial.
break the third wall a little bit. You know, we just want to...
that southern charm.
You just want to look them in the eye as they're driving or washing their dishes, listening to us, and just let them know that our hands are on the steering wheel with them, that our hands are in the sink.
It's the hospitality
with them.
Of the South. That's what you can get on our show. You're guaranteed Southern hospitality when you listen to Connected.
And because I'm hospitable, I don't want to forget my friend and yours, Federico Vitici.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
When I wanted to tell you that you mentioned the steering wheel. When I bought my car 2 years ago, so I'm at the place, the dealership, with my girlfriend and my mom, and there's this guy who's in charge of selling me this car. And so we went over all the details one last time. The day that the car arrived, he was explaining all the different functions, all the different buttons, and then I'm in the car, still inside the dealership, in the showroom floor, basically. And I'm trying to understand what all the buttons do. So the guy gets into the car, sits in the passenger seat, and he looks at me straight in the eyes, and he's like, "And you know that for any problems, I'm always here with you." And it's... and he meant that, like, as he's saying that, he hands me his business card with his phone number, and it's like, I'm always in the car with you. And I thought that was extremely creepy.
He thought that he had landed on, like, the perfect final sales line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, as I am right now, imagine I am always in this car with you. It's like I
like
don't
an
want
angel
that.
watching
I
over
have
me.
other people that need to use
exactly.
that seat. Like, that seat is needed. Like, I don't...
Exactly. I don't want you to linger here forever.
You're going to, like, open a sun visor and, like, a picture of him falls out. Like, he's just been there the whole time.
And I thought that the guy was extremely creepy. And I asked my mom, I think a couple of months ago, whatever happened to the guy, because my mom works for sort of the Italian equivalent of the DMV. But my understanding of the DMV is that it's a terrible place.
That's true.
The Italian version is kind of decent. And on the TC scale, it's a normal place. And she told me, so she knows all of these guys that, dealerships and all that. And she told me that the guy got fired.
Oh, no.
And
he was there too much. He was with other people
too much. It was just creepy. The guy was just creepy, honestly. Like, he was looking at me and it's like, I'm always here with you. He was giving off a creepy vibe. So, yeah, that's my story about steering wheels.
I hope he's not a listener.
Story of the week, new segment.
Put a sound effect under it. It'll be perfect.
Story of the week.
So we're recording this on Tuesday, June 26th. We're a day earlier than normal. We're going to talk more about some scheduling stuff in a second. But today marks the release of the macOS Mojave public beta release. So we had iOS 12 release yesterday on Monday, I think. And now macOS public beta today. There's some links in the show notes. Jason Snell has a really nice, like, hands-on walkthrough of the whole OS. So if you saw my dark mode thing, Jason's is much broader, talking about lots of stuff going on. And I am also putting a link in the show notes to my favorite external SSD, because you should not run this on your primary machine. You should not boot into this yet on a regular basis for your work. It's still very early. If you have a second MacBook or something, or if you're like me, I have a desktop and a notebook, I don't use the notebook very much, then yeah, go crazy. But, like, do not put this on your production machine. Don't put it on your only computer, because it's still really early. And if things go wrong, it can be difficult to go back. You can't, if you have a time machine backup with Mojave, you can't restore that data to High Sierra very smoothly. And so just do what I do, put it on an external SSD. And the next bullet point in the show notes says, Federico had a bad day with macOS. So, Federico, what happened to you?
What happened to me is that I should never use Macintosh computers. That's what happened to me. That I should just stick to iPads and iPhones. So last night I got curious about Mojave And
You do this every
Mojave
time.
curious.
And I don't understand. Every
don't,
time you do this,
don't
I don't
understand my curiosity.
It's the allure of the dark mode. It spoke to him.
Dark mode spoke to me and he said, "Come over to the dark side."
Hey,
If that's a Star Wars quote, I'm not
holy
sure.
cow!
I think Star Wars is the one with the light side and the dark side, and the guy who's the father of the other guy.
Spoilers.
Do you know? Can you give me the name of any person who says the phrase like "Join me in the dark side, come over to the dark side"? Can you give me the name of anybody?
The
who said that?
the guy with the black helmet.
The name. I'm looking for a name, not a
Darth
description.
Vader.
Yeah, you did it. Okay, you did it. You did it. Good work.
That's the
You got
guy.
there.
Look,
That's the guy.
I watched one Star Wars movie. So the first one. So
Wait, which first one?
I don't want to clarify it. I think it's best that we don't get the answer just in case. Like
the very old one, not the trilogy.
Good.
That's.
Okay, cool.
I know some basic details about Star Wars.
All right.
Anyway, so I installed Mojave, and then basically you two last night, you shaded me into having a second partition with a High Sierra on it, with a stable version because of the shows that I need to record, which I understand, and I felt bad. So I went on
You
Amazon.
do this every year, though, Federico. Every single year we have this.
Man,
review.
at least I feel bad every year.
Why?
I mean, at least I'm sorry. It's like I could
Okay.
do it every year and not be sorry. I do it every year and I apologize. So
I don't like. I understand. Forget it. Go on, carry on with your story.
went on Amazon. So I needed to install High Sierra, but turns out you cannot just download High Sierra and run the installer from a newer version of macOS. You need to make a bootable USB thing. But I didn't have a USB drive that had enough space to be an installer, so I went on Amazon.
because you were going to make a partition, right?
I was going to make a partition,
spoke over
boot
you.
from
Yeah.
USB, and install High Sierra on the partition. I went on Amazon. I could have bought a USB drive that would have arrived this morning, but instead I just went to an electronics store this morning and I bought a USB drive.
Oh no.
No, that which was fine because it's a 32 gigs one, like super cheap. So I was actually pretty happy with my purchase. I make it a USB drive using this application called I don't know. I just read something on Macworld.
Disk Maker X, something. There's a bunch of them.
It's there's a couple of them. It's one with the golden X as an icon. Install this creator. That's the name.
Wow, look at that icon. That is
Yeah, it's horrible.
very shiny.
So I install High Sierra on the partition. Everything is fine. I create my user account. I type in what I believe is my usual password. I log into iCloud. I log into the High Sierra. I download a bunch of apps like 1Password and Tweetbot. Everything is fine. Then I remember that to record, I need to use Audio Hijack. And to use Audio Hijack, I have this recipe thing, like this workflow that Stephen created for me that connects all the right inputs and saves 2 copies of the audio file. But it was on the other partition. So on the Mojave partition, I needed to export the session, I think it's called, from Audio Hijack and import it back into High Sierra. So I log out I restart the Mac and I log into the second partition, the one with Mojave on it. I save the file from Audio Hijack, restart my MacBook again, and I try to log into High Sierra. And I thought that I had the usual username and the usual password that I use all the time for the Mac. But it wasn't letting me in. So it was saying your password is incorrect. I was like, that is not possible. Like, I just created the password and I always use this password. And I typed it in twice because you need to confirm a password when you set up macOS. But it wasn't letting me in. So I tried like 20 times. I tried all caps, no caps, first letter, title case, everything. Like nothing was working. So I text Stephen and I'm like, how do I fix this? And Stephen told me a bunch of things, including...
Did you try the root thing just out of interest? Was that a thing that anybody tried?
The what?
The root bug? Just type it in a blank password.
I didn't try that.
No, I gave him the 10.13.5 installer, I think. So it's well past well past that
okay.
because you couldn't even download High Sierra, so I had to zip up the installer application, which is like 6 gigs, and put it in a shared Dropbox folder. I felt very dirty. It's like a gray market OS installer ring that I've built for myself.
So anyway, I start doing. First, I try to reset the password using the native password. I forgot my password tool when you what's it called, recovery mode.
Yes.
Didn't work. Then I tried
What do you mean?
It said that the password with my Apple ID couldn't be changed. Just said this user account. But I actually remember ticking the box that said allow an Apple ID to reset the user password. But then I tried and it said this user account cannot be reset via an Apple ID. Okay, sure. So I try macOS recovery. I tried to reinstall macOS, and it said the recovery server could not be contacted. So I then try internet recovery, which is this other method that takes like 20 minutes to do I don't know what. There's a globe icon in the middle of the screen and a progress bar.
It's booting from like a remote image on an Apple server. So if you don't have a recovery partition, so like my MacBook Pro through a series of unfortunate events does not have a recovery partition, and I haven't gotten around to fixing it. So my only option would be this internet recovery. So you hold down set of keys and it basically boots from an image hosted by Apple. And so it copies some of that to like local disk space and then boots from it, and it takes forever.
But yeah, I waited 20 minutes for the internet recovery magic to work, and I said reinstall macOS, and it said again the recovery server could not be contacted, which is funny because you're literally just talking to a server for internet recovery. But so at this very moment I'm recording on Mojave because I cannot log into High Sierra, where in theory I use the same password that I use all the time, a password that according to the Mac I must have typed in wrong twice when I was creating my user account. I don't know if there's any other way to reset my password, but this stuff looks incredibly difficult to me. Like, why isn't there like a single screen that says, I forgot my password, let me change my password? I think the problem is that I did something that I shouldn't have done, which is enabling file vault encryption. Also, I don't know what file vault encryption is. It just looks secure. And that I thought, well, maybe, like my thought when I see this security stuff is, I don't know, maybe if the police gets my computer for some reason, they cannot see my stuff.
Or it's in a car that gets stolen. I don't know who that would happen to.
Oh, exactly. But I don't know what file vault is. It just looked fancy enough. And now I cannot change my password. So I don't know. Now I'm probably going to get all kinds of suggestions. Okay. Do you have some for me?
Those are the two that I've thought of so far. And I have not personally come across the recovery server cannot be contacted or whatever that error said. But in Googling it, it does seem like people have run into that. And there doesn't seem to be like a consistent answer to why or like how you go around it.
Okay.
Some people said to reboot with the option key held down, which will let you verify your Wi-Fi is on and then select the internet. Like, I don't know. So if you have ideas, please let us know because we'd like to fix your computer.
I bet file vault is the problem though, right?
Well, like you should be able to, you can boot from another volume with file vault enabled. You just can't poke around the protected partition. So for instance, my MacBook Pro, I have file vault turned on, which I think is a good idea on a laptop because if it gets stolen from, an airport or you leave it in a bus station or wherever, they can't get your stuff. So with this, when I boot into Mojave on that external SSD, the internal drive doesn't show up in Finder unless I mount it and give it a password. Like it is hidden away, but I can still boot from other volumes, no problem. So I kind of got the feeling that you have something bigger going on, and I'm not sure that I would blame File Vault. I mean, it's possible that when you turn File Vault on, that somehow it cooked your keychain or something, and now you can't log in. But I think you're in a weird spot that you obviously shouldn't have happened. Clearly, you've hit some sort of issue.
So I didn't know about any of this part, right? Like this whole conversation happened between the two of you, like for even this, like the petition thing even beginning in the first place. So for what it's worth, Federico, I just want you to know that I appreciate the work that you have attempted to do this time to fix the problem that you created. Like, I appreciate it. Like, I just want you to know that.
Well, it didn't work. So.
Well, you tried, but like you tried, you tried your hardest. You spent money on it. You spent time on it. I hope that this experience has taught you a lesson for next year.
Well,
but genuinely, I doubt it, because I still don't understand even why you did it in the first place. Like, I don't know why you would bother to install Mojave. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, he's a huge Mac fan, and he just is itching for those new Mac bits.
It's probably stupid. It's probably stupid, but I thought that messages would sync better between iOS 12 and Mojave.
It doesn't.
And I really wanted to try dark mode. But I can tell you.
But why does the messages thing matter to you? Like,
because when I'm recording shows, for example, interviews on app stories, I need to be able to talk to John, but messages is always out of sync, or just texting Sylvia in the other room, stuff like that. But I can tell you now, I'm going on the record with this stuff. Next year, and especially on the watch, like, I will never ever again put a WatchOS beta on my main watch. It's been an incredibly frustrating process in that I cannot do reliable workouts anymore.
Yeah.
Like, external heart rate sensors are not working. The built-in sensor is worse than usual. Like, the built-in Apple Watch sensor for heart rate was always problematic for me, but now it's just been a horrible experience with the my heart rate is like 150 BPM and the sensor says 67 or the calorie counting just stops working. And I'm dying over here, Apple Watch. It's not 67 BPM.
If it is, you need to go to the hospital.
Maybe you've just gotten really good at workouts.
Yeah, you're sweating like an animal, and your heart rate's barely above most people's resting rate.
So I feel like I will never put a WatchOS beta on my main watch ever again. I should probably be like David Smith and have like 22 watches on my arms. And also, I think the same argument applies to the Mac. I think I learned my lesson.
The reason that I find the Mac one frustrating, though, is that there is a way for you to do this, which is to just put it on an SSD. Like, it's not like with the watch stuff. If you want to try it out, your option is buy a new watch or just do it, right? And it's like, so I would understand that more. But like, you could just external SSD, taken care of.
Use my Amazon affiliate code that's in the show notes. You'll be set. It's very pretty. It's blue, and everyone should buy one.
Should we take our first break and then actually do follow-up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we never got there. It was the story about the steering wheel that really tipped it all over. Right?
We really drove off course at that point.
This episode is brought to you by Pingdom, the company who offer uptime monitoring and web performance management. If your website was down right now, if people couldn't get to your content, they couldn't click that all-important buy now button, how would you know? Surely you don't want to know because somebody's emailed you or they sent a tweet to you. You don't want to know that way. You want to know because you get a push notification or a text message or an email or all three of them. That's what Pingdom can do for you. They use 70 global test servers. They emulate visits to your site and they check its availability as often as every minute. And if something goes wrong, they will alert you. Pingdom also understands that this isn't a case of just like, oh, your website is up or your website is down, because websites are so complicated now. There's lots of dependencies. There are lots of little things like maybe you use some other functionality for a login or for e-commerce checkouts and stuff like that. Pingdom can monitor all of these functions, and if anything seems awry, they will let you know. All you need to do is give Pingdom the URL that you want monitored, and they'll take care of everything else. Go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now, and you can get yourself a 14-day free trial with no credit card needed. And then when you sign up, use the code CONNECTED at checkout to get a huge 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom for their support of this show and Relay FM. So do you want to go into real follow-up, Stephen?
Yeah, let's do some real follow-up. And we are going to talk about Federico's directions to read the show notes on an Apple Watch. What happened here, Federico?
Matt Casinelli actually followed my instructions and built a workflow to text the link to the show notes to himself, so that he could tap the link on iMessage and try it on the Apple Watch. As you know, this is the best practice for show notes. I said I want to reiterate my belief that the future of show notes is on the wrist, and I was really happy to see Matt put together this workflow. As you can see, these glorious screenshots of tiny text and tiny links and tiny articles on the Apple Watch. This is the future of content.
Aside from the weird double navigation button, which I don't understand, our website looks pretty good on the Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have a question about this, and I haven't watched much Apple Watch stuff in the sessions. So WatchOS 5 has a WebKit rendering engine, but you only use it, right, if in a situation like this, right, you get an iMessage that has some content attached to it or an email or something. Like, there's not a browser, it just can show stuff if it comes into you. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, like if you get a message, you can click the link.
Yes.
Right? But you can't just be like, hey, I want to go to a website.
Yeah.
Like you can only act upon stuff that's been sent to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and presumably developers can show you web content if it's needed. I'm not sure if it's only on iMessage, but anyway, it's the WebKit engine, and I think basically if you receive a link to an article that WebKit or Safari thinks it's suitable for Safari Reader, it'll load the Safari Reader article view by default. As you can see, I think in the Mac Stories screenshot and in Matt's tweet, I think that's Safari Reader mode. So it tries to optimize using because it's a responsive layout, only on a super, super tiny screen. It's using Safari Reader to just show you the images and the text.
So I'm pretty impressed with the way that our website looks on such a tiny screen. It's nice.
Yeah, it shows our media player and stuff, so I don't know what it's doing.
It's doing all sorts. It's very exciting stuff happening there.
I'm not gonna prioritize fixing the website on the Apple Watch.
You will need some kind of organic toothpick to tap on those tiny buttons.
I know. Just shave down the end of a hot dog. There is another Teachy scale.
Yeah, do you want to read what this is actually called? Do you want to know, Stephen? Do you want to go for it? What the TICI in this Teachy scale stands for?
Thrombolysis. Thrombolysis. It sounds like it's a medical thing in a cerebral infarction. So basically what this is, I Wikipedia'd it and I still don't understand it, but it's really bad.
This is when you die. This is what happens when you
it's like a serious...
It's a scale for measuring stroke conditions, like the brain's function after a stroke.
There you go.
Like after a specific type of stroke or hemorrhage. Yes. So this is way less fun than the other Teachy scale.
Yeah, this really sucked the air right out of the room.
But a lot more useful, maybe even. Even though, yeah. Yep. What you got to say?
I don't agree with the grades. So it starts from grade 0, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, and it's so boring because it's grade 0, no perfusion. Grade 1, penetration with minimal perfusion. Grade 2, partial perfusion, and grade 3, complete perfusion. I feel like
there's also a grade 2A and grade 2B.
I don't know.
Yeah, but we have inferior and inferior minus. So like I feel we can forgive a multi-staged level.
All right. Also, it's Teachy with one C, so it's like Teachy. Teachy.
Well, a bunch of people sent this in, so we wanted to address it. Hopefully, none of us ever have to hear about that again. Just briefly, we want to mention that there is going to be no episode of Connected next week. We will be back on Wednesday.
The show's back.
The show is back on Wednesday 11th. That will be me and two special guests. It will be the first time, actually. I went back through, and best I can tell, It'll be the first episode in 5 years that only one of us is
and
on.
it's a perfect way to celebrate episode 200 with only one third of the show in attendance.
So I'll be joined by Casey Liss and John Voorhees, and we're going to do that show on the 11th. And then Federico is back, but Myke, you're taking a month off.
Yeah, I'm going to be back on August the 1st. So enjoy my voice today because I'll be gone for a month. I'm getting married and I'm going on my honeymoon. That's happening kind of all throughout the month of July. So this is the last time that you'll hear me for a bit, and then I'll be gone. But then I'll come back, and then everything will be good again.
This is the last time you're doing Connected as a what's the word when you're
bachelor, single man. Yeah,
this is the last episode of a bachelor.
You'll be a man next time you're on the show, Myke.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? Just give up, turn into an old man, just like you.
You'll be saying things like "my wife,"
My wife. Mm-hmm.
We talked about it briefly, but the iOS 12 public beta is out. And so people are running it now. You're not just stuck on the dev build. It does seem that this is the same build as the dev beta 2, which both of you are running, I believe.
I've seen some people, including a friend of the show and software miner and architect, Mr. Rambo, say that this is the same build. Like from what he can ascertain, that this is the same build. I don't know if you are aware of anything on that, Federico. Like I don't know if you've seen anything specific, but it seems like that this is Dev Beta 2.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually the same. I haven't heard or seen any other changes from the current build, and it's basically the pattern that Apple has been following for the past couple of years. Of the dev beta comes the week before, and a few days later, if not even the next day, if everything is fine, the public beta goes out. So I suppose that with beta 3, unless Apple destroys everything, we'll see beta 3 next week or the week after, and a couple of days later, the public beta 2. At that point, so that
is my great fear, right? That like everything's so fine right now, and then they're just going to be like, "Ha ha, we got you!" And they just like release the worst beta of all time. That's what I'm concerned about.
It's happened. I mean, that's part of the deal, right? That it's all possible. So I'm still not running it. My plan is to do it after some upcoming travel. But do the two of you feel like it's kind of ready for like nerdy consumption? Like, should listeners of Connected check out the public beta?
Yeah, I would say you're fine with the dev beta as well. But like, I mean, it's, I know people say, "Oh, you should never say," but I'm just going to straight up say it. Like, I think it's absolutely fine. I've been running it for a couple of weeks, and I'm happy to say that I like it. Like, I've had one Springboard crash on my iPad over the last 8 days. Like, I think that is probably as many as I probably had on 11. Like, I have absolutely no problem with this. I have no battery life issues. I'm completely fine with it. Like, I mean,
is GPS still broken? I saw some tweets about that.
I mean, I wouldn't know. Like, I was out in London today using it for walking directions and had no problem, but I don't know what the problem is with GPS.
Yeah, when I was driving the other day, I noticed this on beta 1, and I thought it was a temporary issue, but then I saw that people were actually tweeting about the GPS problem, and I tried again with beta 2 a couple of days ago, and it just Google Maps and Apple Maps were saying that I was going in the opposite direction of where I was driving. So, I needed to ask Sylvia to put in directions on her phone. But otherwise, I would say it's totally fine. Again, the GPS and the occasional Springboard crashes are the only problems that I've noticed. I think it's totally fine. Battery life is fine. And there's a few issues, of course, with third-party apps, especially the ones that do...
Yeah, I haven't had any. I haven't had any, like, instant crashes or anything.
No instant crash, but just, like, random stuff for apps that do, I don't know, like, custom things with menus and pop-ups, I think. Because there are some changes in the APIs always, and maybe things break, but not to the extent that they were breaking like a couple of years ago with iOS 10. So I would say the iOS 12 beta, unlike the other betas, it's basically fine. And we got the idea that it was going to be okay when Apple, had the talk show. I think Joshua basically said, "It's fine, I have it on my phone," which is unusual for an Apple executive to say on stage.
I think Joe said a lot of things he probably shouldn't have said, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like he gets loosey-goosey, which one reason I like him being interviewed and stuff, because like, I don't necessarily want to hang out with a bunch of Apple executives, but I feel like he'd be the one. Like, we could just sit back and talk about like iPod shuffles for an hour, and it'd be great. Does anybody else think about that? It's just me?
I think you might be on your own on that one, I'm afraid.
Just me.
There were a few things that are going on in the beta that I wanted to mention. Just a couple of things that I've noticed in using it. I did see one that this isn't my thing, but I did see it going by on Twitter that you can apparently now use on an iPad that is a non-pro iPad. You can use 3 apps at the same time.
Yeah.
I wonder if it will ship this way.
That's a bug. So my understanding is that this is a bug, a really bad one, in fact, that it wasn't supposed to ship and it'll be removed because these devices, Apple thinks they're not capable of running 3 apps at once without running into performance problems and other issues because they think these iPads, they don't have enough memory. So enjoy 3 apps on non-pro iPads until it lasts because I think it'll be removed.
And I guess kind of just breaking down some stuff that I've been enjoying. The new notification stuff, obviously, is... I mean, I think that this is the main reason if you want to update right now. This is the biggest feature that you're going to get on a daily basis, is the notification stuff. Like, the grouping is so good. Like, anyone that's listened to the show for long enough knows just how unhappy I was with iOS 11 that it removed the grouping by application. And this is so much better than that, like than the previous way of doing it, because it now groups by application but also collapses them. So my overall view into notifications is way smaller. It's really good for group iMessage threads, especially. Right, because I'm on quite a few of those, and they just get all collapsed together in a nice way, so you don't have like 30 messages, right, that you have to scroll through before you can see what's next, right? Like the group's going off on something that you're not talking about, and you want to see if you've got any emails or whatever. You're scrolling down like 2 screens before you even get to that. Now that's all collapsed together, which is really nice. And I like that you can... I was concerned that they were going to mess around with the 3D touch actions, right? That maybe that would open the group or something, but it just allows you to react to the last message, and there's nice little buttons everywhere. There is one thing that I don't like, but I'll get over. In adding in, like when you swipe to a message over to the left-hand side, you get like contextual buttons, right? You used to be able to, if you swiped it right to the end, the notification would just go away, right? Like it was a quick way to clear it. But because they've added in another button called Manage, which is like another way to get to the quick settings, that doesn't work on the iPhone anymore. It still works on the iPad. Because the iPad has way more screen space, so you just keep going until it goes away, but the iPhone doesn't. So by the time that the notification has cleared the screen, there's just those 3 buttons left. If you found that to be that way, Federico, you can't swipe the notifications away anymore on the iPhone?
I don't think I've ever done that. I always, yeah.
Okay, see, that's how I used to do it. Like, if I wanted to get rid of notifications, I'd just swipe them. I quite like that. But you can't do that anymore. But I will take what I've gotten. Because this is the thing, like I always say this, I feel like I have to try and reiterate this all the time, though, because I think it's important. I'm happy to lose functionality if what I get is a net positive at the end. And the net positive is that it's, it is the ability to be able to get at that pane, which allows me to deliver quietly or turn something off, right? Turn notifications off. Because that's just another way that they're letting you get to that, is by swiping and hitting the manage button. And I absolutely love that. I'm getting rid of so many notifications. I was listening to you and John talk about this on App Stories, and it's so true that, like, there would be so many times where, like, I would get a notification and be like, I really don't want to see it anymore. But to get rid of it takes so long. Like, you've got to go into settings, wait for the list to load once you get to notifications, then scroll to it, and then pick, like, what do I actually want to do? But this is so good to just make the decision of, like, of getting rid of it. Plus, I feel like that they have finally used language to explain what cover sheet is in a way that makes sense to me now. Like the difference between the lock screen and notification center. Like, they are 2 different things. Like, I had no idea that they were 2 different things. But like, they're still on the same screen, but it's just notification center belongs when you pull up. And that's where everything that's old is since the last time that you locked and unlocked your phone. And it's like, now I can see why you put these things together. But like Apple's problem sometimes is like they make half of a change and they don't explain it, so it doesn't make any sense. So like cover sheet and the removing of group notifications made no sense in 11, and it was bad. Like it just didn't make any sense. But now when they go over to 12, it's like, oh, because they had a better grouping system, and they were finally going to do something that made sense to split those two apart, even though they're on the same screen. But like it took them to the next iteration before they could explain it. And I hope that a potentially slower cycle of development might allow them to make those changes in full in the future, as opposed to doing them like half and half, because they kind of have to split the functionality apart because they need to release something, right? So, but yeah, I really, really like that stuff. I like all the controls. I like the grouping. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and I love how the simplification of the cover sheet. I think it's actually not called cover sheet anymore. Like all that
it's lock screen and notification center. Like they are
exactly
defined
all
now
that
again.
Weird naming convention is gone, and now it's just, do you want to see alerts on your lock screen when your phone is locked, or do you want them just to go to the notification center? I think it's so much cleaner, it's so much easier to understand and to explain. There's one feature, like one small detail that I wanted to mention in this list. Something that I used to do all the time before iOS 12. I remember a song, or I hear a song on the radio, or when you walk into H&M, for example, you're shopping and they have the radio station on, but it doesn't. You can't know what song title it is, and Shazam is not working, but you can make out the lyrics of a song. And I used to go on Google and just type in the lyrics of a song and trying to find the song. Now you can do that in Apple Music. So you can search for lyrics and it'll bring up song results with the lyrics highlighted within the song, the search results. It's so good, and I've already managed to find like 3 to 4 songs that I wouldn't have found otherwise. And the best part is, it's not like you're on Google. You find the song, and then you have to open YouTube, or you have to type into your streaming service. You can just tap. It's right there. You can just tap play and listen. So
I wished I knew this feature existed, because literally last night we were having this where like we were trying to think of a song, and I was asking the Echo, because apparently the Echo can do this. But every time I asked the question like, "Oh, what is the song that goes?" and I give it some lyrics, it would just say "resuming Spotify." It's like that's not what I want. And I did this like 3 times, and then I just picked up my phone and Googled it. But otherwise, I would have gone to Apple Music and done it, right? Because that just seems like an easier thing, like an easier way to do things. Or maybe I should have just asked Siri. I don't know, but yeah, that's really cool. I would never have known that feature existed unless you just told me it.
There you go.
Oh, until I read your review, if it would have made it in the review. I've been enjoying creating Memoji. And I wanted to just give a little Memoji tip to people, that in case you're playing with them now or whatever. You can, from the app, if you expand it in iMessages, you get like this 3 little dots in a button that you can press that give you a couple of options. One is to delete and one is to edit, but another is to duplicate a Memoji, which is really good if you want to make a summer look for yourself. Right, so I have regular Myke, and then I just duplicated the one that I've made to put sunglasses on him, and then another one to put a top hat. So I have, the 3 important looks of Myke Hurley: regular, sunglasses, and top hat. I just thought that was really good, because when I first used it, I made 2, and they weren't the same, because I didn't know you could duplicate it, and it's like, there's just like something different, but I don't remember the exact choices I made. So yeah, you can just duplicate it, and then you can edit the duplicated one to, I don't know, put different hats or sunglasses or whatever, and I really like that, so that's really cool.
It seems like a lot of thought went into the Memoji system, like details like that, right? Like I don't think I would have thought of that initially. It's like, oh, I want to make a second one.
My expectation is, they may have been working on this from the very beginning and like took some time to flesh it out further, because they had to wait for tongue detection. That is very important. I do that a lot. I do a lot of the Memoji, and I think I've sent more Memoji than I've ever sent an emoji. It's more fun. I sent a picture of it to my mom today. I like to confuse my mom with things like this. She's just like, how'd you do that? It's like, don't worry about it, Mom.
I'm on the beta.
It's all good.
I think that'll be true for most people, because unless you're like me and you have been strongly correlated with an Animoji character, like, it's not you, right? Like, this is you. It's sort of a creepy floating head version of you, but like, this will take off for the same reason that Bitmoji took off, because you can put yourself in these into the app in a way that you can't do when you just pick a lion or a ghost or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think that there is a missing component, though, because Bitmoji creates all of these emotions for you, right? You just create your look, and it puts you in
1,000 situations.
And that's, I think, what makes Bitmoji so successful, which is, I think, is they're similar, but there is a key difference in that Bitmoji creates all of these stickers for you that have different emotions, and they're in different contexts, and they also have lots of seasonal ones and stuff like that. So I would like to see Apple take Memoji a bit further. I think it may have been Jason Snow who said this to me at one point during WWDC, where he was like, I would like them to just give me an option to make an emoji character and then just recreate all of the emoji that exist with my face. I was like, oh yeah, awesome. That would be really good, right? So you can, all of the current yellow-faced emoji characters, like that exist, just the regular emotion emojis, you can just have them all but your face. I would like that a lot.
Just one small thing that most people are already aware of, I suppose. There's a favicon support in Safari tabs. This is on Mojave and on iOS 12, which I really like, because I've always been a fan of the way that Google Chrome presents tabs with website icons. Also, these website icons, these favicons, or if you have an SVG like Mac Stories, we have like a Retina ready SVG icon, it'll use that. You can see these icons in the new iCloud keychain feature, which at this point it should really be a keychain or password app. Like, it should be a password.
Yes, they have one on the Mac.
It should be keychain for iOS. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
They've been adding features.
So right now, if you want to see your iCloud keychain passwords in iOS, how do you even do it? I don't use this feature, so I don't even know. Like, is there an interface?
You need to go into settings, accounts and passwords, and then show websites passwords. It's...
Or I guess if you're looking for a password, right, you can do it. Wait, like if you're at the moment where you need a password, you can hit the little keychain icon on the keyboard when you're in a web browser.
You can also ask Siri in iOS 12. To show you a password, and it'll take you to that screen. But they've been adding features to the iCloud keychain. It's really well done, and it should be split into a separate app at this point. Anyway, the keychain also uses website icons now. So it can actually be used and browsed by normal people.
Yeah.
It's much more colorful and usable than before. So I really like that change. And also I really like how the iCloud keychain now tells you if you're reusing the same password on multiple websites, and on which websites you're reusing the same password, and it'll offer you to change it. I really like what the Safari team and the iCloud Keychain team does every year. There's always, even when Safari does not get a major update in terms of design or functionality, they always manage to sneak in those couple of features that are really well done. I think the password autofill changes this year and the iCloud Keychain changes are really good.
So when I was hearing about those, I was like, I'm not going to get to use them because I use Chrome, right? And Gboard. But what I hadn't realized is that whenever I need a password, I don't get to use Gboard, right? iOS kicks me out to a stock keyboard, even though I don't have one installed, which is one of the features it's a security feature, right? So when I'm typing in a password, the third-party keyboard that I use can't see it, because you can do that full control thing, whatever it's called, full access. So it brings up a standard keyboard. So I may be able to get some of that functionality, and this was proven to me. I had a two-factor code. I was logging into the Slack web app on my iPhone because I needed to change something, and I got a two-factor text message, and it popped up the little thing above the keypad that just had the number that the text message had come through. So the text message comes through with the 6-digit code, and then while I'm looking, I've got my cursor in the keyboard area in the password field. It just shows the little 6-digit code. So would you like to enter it? That's probably one of my single favorite features of iOS 12. That is so amazing. I love that feature. I wished it would then just delete the text message, but that's maybe asking too much. But that the ability for the iPhone to know what's coming in through messages and just let me tap a button without needing to type in the key, that just makes things so much simpler, and will, I think, for a lot of people, make it even easier, and they'll be more happy to turn on two-factor for more and more services because it enables this. I don't know if this stuff works. Maybe you can tell me. I don't know if this stuff works for non-text message two-factor, but it does for text message stuff.
Yeah, and it's so impressive that like it works for I think all the different locales and languages that are supported by iOS, because Apple is doing they're using data detectors and heuristics to trying to infer where the code is positioned in a text message, and it works in English. And I tried a couple of days ago. It works in Italian, and you get the suggestion right away. So as the message comes in, and as you tap into the field in a web page, it just loads into the quick type bar suggestion thing, and it provides you with the code that you can tap and fill in. It's so impressive, and I really like that. It's a small feature, but it really does remove that annoyance of just going back into messages and trying to memorize the code and switching back. It's a small feature, but once you try it, it makes so much sense, and you go like, I wonder why nobody's ever done this before. So yeah, really good one.
But it's one of those things where I'm cool with Apple doing it, right? Because I believe that they're not sending that codes or that information up to somewhere and then back to me. Like, it's just happening on the device, and I'm cool with it. So yeah, iOS 12, 2 thumbs up so far. I'm really enjoying it. But I want that Shortcuts app.
Yeah, I know.
Give me the Shortcuts app. Come on.
One day.
Come on.
I forgot some follow-up.
Oh, you're fired.
And it just popped in my brain when you were talking. So we were in San Jose, and they had the Bird scooters. And what was the other company? LimeWire scooters. They're here in Memphis now. It's like on like the mayor and like the city commission like rode them across like our city hall is like a water fountain thing at the front of it, and they like rode across the plaza on them and like did some cool power sliding in front of the media. And the weird thing about these, like, you just leave them wherever you go, right? So like, I'm going to this coffee shop, I can just leave it outside. And like, that's fine when it's not the city you live in. But now, after just like a week, and they're not even in my part of town, they're all like in the Midtown area where like there's a lot of restaurants and stuff to do, and then they're downtown. This weekend was in a neighborhood where they are, and they're just everywhere. And like, there's like people like riding down the street without helmets. Like, what are you doing? Like, so it's fun to do when you're on vacation at WWDC. It gives you heartburn when it's in your own city. But I don't know why they're here. We're not a big city. Like, I don't know how they picked Memphis, but Bird is here in force. They are, at least in the parts of town they are in, they are everywhere.
This actually made me look at these in the UK, and I was kind of just digging around today. Those electric scooters are illegal in the UK.
That's probably good.
There's going to be some significant work that needs to be done if they want to launch here, which these companies are trying, like Bird and Lime and Lyft and Uber. Like, they're getting in on this game now, like Lyft and Uber are, and everyone's lobbying to try and get these things added. So it may well happen, but as of right now, kind of just like that type of vehicle is illegal here. And I think it's like, when I was younger, there were these like little gas-powered like mini motorcycles. Like, they looked like motorbikes, but they were really small, like a child would ride them. They were like a scourge on the streets of London. So I think a lot of laws were put in place, probably because of those, to like ban that type of vehicle, I think.
Sure. I can't imagine these in a big, like in a real city. Like, if you've been to San Jose for WWDC, you've been to Memphis. Like, it's laid out very similar. You need a car to go almost anywhere. Even the city center feels sort of suburban in a way. I can't imagine riding one of these things in the streets of Chicago or New York or London or San Francisco, like a real city with like buses and fire, like,
yeah,
it just has to be terrifying.
Well, like, one of the big problems is the littering of them, right? But and again, I saw more news today. I feel like I'm really plugged into the scooter news. I don't know why this has happened to me, but it's where I am. That in San Francisco, they're now like talking about letting them come back, but they will build areas where you have to park them. Right, so like the city bike type things, where like you can drive them, but you have to take them to a designated parking or pickup area, as opposed to like just put them wherever you want. And so I saw in San Francisco that now they're kind of taking bids, or like they're talking with companies about setting up stations, right, that you would pick up and drop off at, so that they won't be littered around anymore. So that's kind of a way that like a big city might try and deal with it. Like, and again, as you can imagine, the companies that have applied for those permits right now include Uber and Lyft, and it's probably going to end up being one of those companies that gets it because they're more established, right? But I would be super surprised if the city of San Francisco allowed Uber to do it. It feels probably more like it would be Lyft, but I guess we'll wait and see. All right, I know that you're probably very excited about our next topic, Stephen.
Yeah, so Friday at the end of the day, where big companies release their most important news, Apple opened a repair service program for every MacBook and MacBook Pro with the butterfly keyboard. So it's the 2015, 16, and 17 MacBook, 2016 and 2017 MacBook Pros. You know, the ones with the silly ports and the keyboards that don't work. So for up to 4 years from initial purchase, Apple will repair the keyboard if you have sticky keys or keys that feel sticky, key presses that are not recognized, keys that are loose, key presses that are repeated, any of that sort of stuff. Apple will take care of that machine for up to 4 years from date of purchase. Marco Arment had a tweet that I strongly favorited, saying that, well, if the lifespan of these computers is 5 to 7 years, which is probably about right, Apple should cover them for 5 to 7 years. And I agree. The 2017 keyboard is slightly better, but clearly it's not up to standard that Apple would like it to be because it's included in the repair program. And unless they are getting ready to start replacing these with keyboards where they've solved this problem, which they could be, they haven't said anything, then I think that after 4 years and this happens, Apple should still take care of those customers. You know, MacBook Pro customers are generally, you know, the higher end of Mac users, and I think those are customers that are important to keep happy. But I'm glad they're doing it. I wish they were doing it a little bit longer, but now it's here. So if you have paid for a repair, if you for some reason didn't argue your way into a free repair before this, Apple will reimburse you. You can get in touch with them on their page.
I think that's a good move, by the way.
Yeah, and they do that with all these repair extension programs.
Okay.
If you paid for it and they come to their senses, then they'll make it right. But yeah, absolutely, it's a great. That would really be crummy to say, like, well, it's free now, but because you were failed 3 days ago, you're out $700 or whatever it is. There's a question I think of why now. I think there's a couple of factors worth considering. I don't know the answer, but worth considering. One, there is no new Mac Pro. So this was not, at least so far, joined with new notebooks. You know, there were not new notebooks at WWDC. I think the earliest we would see them is probably, you know, July or August, maybe even later. So it's not like Apple's saying there's a new MacBook Pro, the keyboard is fixed, all the old ones are covered under this. They're not saying that with one breath. What I do think this says is that Apple, I would imagine, would feel confident in a new keyboard design whenever that shows up. Because what you don't want to have happen is they release a late 2018 MacBook Pro and they have to add it to this program retroactively.
That would be bonkers, right? Like that you would release a new product that you're saying before it's even released that it's a part of it is broken.
Right. So there is historical context, because that's my gig. You guys remember like the white and black 13-inch plastic MacBooks? Remember those?
Yep.
Like 2006, 7, 8, 9.
Mm-hmm.
Those had a problem. The white ones were affected more, but they both did it, where the top case would crack at the palm rest. So like the very front lip of the computer where your palm went, that plastic
It was the grayish part, right, on the white one, because
Yeah.
it was colored a little bit gray, wasn't it?
Yeah. It would crack at the front of it. And there was a lot of hypothesis about why. There were little nubbins on the display, and I think that added pressure to this part of the top case. Anyway, it's not really important. But my point here is that repair took place over the entire lifespan of that machine. Apple never redesigned the top case or the display or whatever was causing the problem. Apple was content to let their Mac geniuses take out the 17 screws or whatever it was required to replace that top case. That's a repair I could still do in my sleep because I did thousands of them.
Yeah, I think there's some contextual difference, though, in that people loved that machine.
People did love that machine, so they had goodwill. Also, that was a
Yeah.
relatively minor repair, where if you have to have your keyboard replaced on a MacBook Pro or a MacBook, you're getting a keyboard, a top case, and a battery, because that is all one component.
And it was mostly cosmetic, right? Because mine chipped like that, and I just didn't care. Like, it was like, whatever. Like, it just didn't bother me.
Yeah, you could still use it. It's not like your L key failed and then you couldn't type LOL anymore. Like that's a tragedy. So
Just oh.
So the way I'm choosing to interpret this is that Apple wants to take care of their customers. They know it's important. They know there's a problem. And that whatever they are working on for later this year, or God forbid, early next year, that they are working on something with a different keyboard or an improved keyboard. And I hope that that's true. I hope that it's this year. I hope that they have figured this out. And I'm glad they made the right call. I'm sorry that they're in the situation. They shouldn't be in the situation, but they are doing the right thing. There's also the factor of like they're being slammed with class action lawsuits. And I'm not well versed enough in that world to say how this affects that. This does indicate, I think, from a lay person's point of view, that Apple is admitting some sort of guilt in the way that these machines were designed and they work. But I'm not like, well, I don't want to say like, well, this means this for these class action lawsuits. I'm sure Apple will settle those. That's what they do. And, so you'll get 7 cents in the mail in 10 years. But I don't think this is a reaction to the lawsuits. I think it could be partially a reaction to the outrage over these machines. I think Apple would have done this eventually, but I do wonder if it was done now and not later because people are so upset. I mean, this is a repair extension program for a machine that's still for sale. And, that is not something that happens every day. But there you go. I think if you have a MacBook Pro, I think you can sleep easier knowing that even if you don't buy AppleCare, Apple's going to make this right, at least for the next couple years.
All right, today's episode is also brought to you by PDF Pen from our friends at Smile. The new PDF Pen 10 is the ultimate tool for editing PDFs and going paperless. And as we mentioned, I think last week, this month Smile celebrates 15 years of making productivity software and providing fast, friendly service to their customers. PDF Pen 1.0 debuted in 2004 at Macworld San Francisco. And you fast forward 15 years and the new PDF Pen 10 includes features like watermarking, so you can stamp things like draft on a document, so everyone knows that this isn't the final, which could be really useful in a workplace. Batch OCR and making bulk OCR just such a snap to take care of. You just take all these PDFs, run OCR on them rather than having to do it to all of them individually. They have an improved color palette. You can move images around without increasing the size of your document, so it kind of maintains that, which is really useful. And just so much more. PDF Pen is such an incredible application, and Smile do a great job, and they have done a fantastic job over the last 15 years of making that tool more and more powerful. And of course, it is joined by the mobile versions of PDF Pen for iPad and iPhone, so you can edit PDFs while you're on the go, which is something I do all the time. And boy, do I love signing things with my Apple Pencil on my iPad screen. I really love doing that. And PDF Pen makes me still feel like a fancy business person, even though I'm doing it on a mobile device, as it were. During the week of June 11th, Smile celebrated their history on their blogs. You go to smilesoftware.com/blog and you can check out everything that they did there. They had a great sticker giveaway too, so you can go and find out more information about all of that. And if you've been thinking about getting your documents in order, don't put it off any longer. Learn more about PDF Pen right now at smilesoftware.com/podcast. Thanks to PDF Pen 10 and Smile for supporting this show. And hey, Smile, happy birthday. So there was a Bloomberg report. New AirPods, a new HomePod, and studio quality over-ear headphones are apparently all in development right now at Apple, according to Mark Gurman and Debbie Wu. I want to go into just kind of touch on each of those things. Let's talk about AirPods. So apparently, Apple is developing a brand new set of AirPods that feature noise cancellation and water resistance. This isn't waterproofing. You can't like submerge them, but they could be like for rain and splashes and that kind of stuff. They're also looking to increase the range so you can be even further away from the device that they're connected to. And this would probably be a 2019 release and will likely cost more than the current version, with also the possibility of adding some biometrics like heart rate monitors into them too to expand kind of Apple's health focused line of products. I was thinking this is probably like AirPods Pro, right? Like this feels like not AirPods 2. This feels like a significant difference in the like noise cancellation alone feels like you don't need that in every version.
Right.
Apple, please don't put that in every version.
Don't.
I don't like noise cancellation.
It's awful.
And also just, it feels like just not AirPods are a strange thing for noise cancellation anyway, because like you're moving around with AirPods and like I don't think people should use noise cancellation in the street, right? Like I feel like you probably should have at least some noise coming in, but they would be good, if they can somehow put noise cancellation into something that's small and it works well, and like on track when you're traveling and stuff, that would be really nice, right?
I'm a bit skeptical about the idea of noise cancellation in such a small package. It's not even like you don't even have an actual ear cup. You have an earbud that goes into your ear. And so is there even enough room to do noise cancellation done well that doesn't give you a headache?
Like there's no suction, right? There's no isolation of any like significant, so yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, they may be able to do an element of it, right? Like, so it sounds better, but surely it's not going to sound
and also the idea
amazing.
of Apple having discussed adding biometrics to AirPods. I can see why. I also can see why it may not be as useful as the Apple Watch. So you wear the Apple Watch all day, and so if you're interested in building a profile of your heart rate over time, the Apple Watch to me feels like the more useful approach, because it's on your wrist at least 15 hours every day. But I can see why adding more these sensors to the AirPods may be useful for, for example, for people who work out and wear AirPods, or if maybe Apple has come up with a way to do heart rate monitoring through your ears, which feels kind of scary, but that is more accurate than doing so on the wrist. Or maybe they can monitor other things that is not necessarily heart rate. Maybe they can
Well, I've been doing like, I was kind of reading a little bit more about this, and I think it actually speaks to a problem that you have, which is reliability of just the one sensor. And like if you were working out with your Apple Watch on and your heart detecting AirPods, it would do a better job of accurately getting your heart rate correctly because it has multiple places.
That was my idea.
That
so the Apple Watch is going to be more useful overall if you want to have data multiple times throughout the day. But maybe if you also wear AirPods during a workout, which is maybe the time where you're most interested in having super accurate data down to the second, in some cases, maybe that's how Apple is trying to sell it as. And if you also wear AirPods Pro, your workouts will be monitored with even more accuracy or something like that.
Until these new fancy AirPods come out sometime next year, it is likely that we will see an AirPods 2, which would have hands-free Siri, because right now you have to double tap to speak to Siri, so this would be using the Ahoy telephone trigger phrase like a combination, and there would be a new chip that powers them, which would allow for this. And of course, what we already know about that new wireless charging case, which I believe Apple will probably still sell separately if and when AirPower ships. Although I think the likelihood of that is decreasing the closer we get to a new version of AirPods coming out. I think they may only sell it for a limited time, if at all, because they may just bring out the new AirPods and be like, hey, these are way better anyway, give us more money. And then they don't have the complexity of selling this random AirPods case as well. That would be a shame if they did that, but I see it as a possibility. But I reckon September we will get like AirPods 2, which will have this. It's a couple of things I wanted. I would like more battery, just because why not? I'd like better battery life in the second version. Another thing I would like is faster device switching. So, whilst AirPods are better than anything else I've ever used, like, if I'm switching from my iPhone to my iPad, sometimes it still takes longer than I would want. Like I'm sitting and just like watching a spinner for like 20 seconds or something for them to pair up. I would like that to be quicker. And I would hope that a new chip, like a new... Is it the W chip?
Yeah.
They have like W1 in them, right? Yeah, I would hope that, I guess W3 or W2X, because the W2 exists, but is not... Or maybe they just put the W2 in these now. I mean, whatever it's going to be, I would hope that maybe help with that more. Like if they can beef up and maybe put more special sauce on the whole thing, who knows? They love the special sauce on the AirPods. That's why they're adding the water resistance, so you can put even more sauce on them, and
jeez,
and it doesn't destroy them. You can just put as much sauce on as you want. So I would like that. That would be one thing. And again, it's like it's already better than anything else I've ever used for switching devices, but I would like it to be better even still, right?
Yeah, I use a Mac app called Tooth Fairy, and it just puts a little icon in your menu bar, and it like forces them to drop their connection elsewhere and connect to the Mac. Because if you think switching between iOS devices is bad, try switching from your iPhone to your Mac. It is. Like I've had it where like one of them switches, or they switch and they drop back to the phone for like no apparent reason. And this has, I don't know what it's doing. It can't be good, but it is doing something to force them to move over to the Mac. And that I have found handy because I use them for things like Slack calls, or like if we just have a quick phone call and it's not a podcast and I don't want to, power up my amp, and, if I just want to use the AirPods, maybe I'm already even wearing them, then it's just a quick and easy way to do that. And so I've got that running on my Mac now. One thing I would really like to see, and it's totally like silly, but I'd love to have a black finish on them. Like I don't mind the white, but I would prefer black. And I think black would look cool. And I think if Apple wants to, like in a way, AirPods are like the most generic Apple product there's ever been. Like it's just white earbuds that they cut the cables off of. But I think a black finish could show, hey, this guy's got the new ones. It could be a little status symbol in there. And I think black...
To stop the email, yes, we know colorware, we'll paint them for you.
And if you want to wait until like September...
They're $2.99. $2.99, ships in early August. That's the current colorware.
Okay. So if you don't want to do that, and I think that they would do a better job at blending in. I mean, I see AirPods a lot more than I used to in the gym, but I still have that like self-consciousness factor sometimes that like they're white and they stand out. I think black would sort of disappear a little bit better, and I would like that. So some sweet black AirPods. Wait.
It's $3.39 if you want the case as well.
Jeez.
It's $40 more for the case. But I didn't know this. You can have them in 3 different colors. You can everything can be a different color. You can left one, right one, and the case can all be different colors.
That sounds right up your alley, Mike.
No, I don't want that. They do look cool though.
There it is.
Damn, the pictures look good. Like you got them in like metallic finishes and stuff.
Put a link in the show notes so people can see them.
I have.
There's a couple of things I would love to have in the AirPods. I mean, of course, more longer battery life and extended range, so that I can just freely walk around the house and it won't drop the connection. Also, I would love to have a native Siri that actually sounds great, like great voice quality, because right now Siri kind of sounds like it's shouting at you from a different room into your ears. I would love to have. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because it's coming from the iPhone, it's right? Like it's shouting from your pocket,
Siri. I would love to have an actual Siri inside the AirPods. But really, my main thing is volume control. And I think we were discussing this when the AirPods came out 2 years ago, and I haven't changed my mind. I want to be able to slide my finger on the AirPods to change the volume.
I hate the tapping. I hate the tapping. I've never gotten used to it. It works like 3/4 of the time, and it's never a nice experience to thud the side of my ear.
I mean,
like,
it gets the job
like
done, but it also feels kind of stupid. And I think just swiping on the AirPod would be much more subtle, and also it would be perfect for volume control because you're literally swiping the volume up and down. So hopefully, AirPods Pro will have these features. But I don't know. Maybe Apple is against swiping on a little thing that comes out of your ear. I don't know. It just feels right to me, but we'll see.
All right. As well as AirPods is the return to rumor of what I think at the time we called HeadPods, the over-ear headphones that are likely to be high-end in price and construction. Apparently, according to this Bloomberg report, they are intended to be higher end than the Beats products.
Anytime we talk about Apple and Beats, I think it's worth checking in on the Beats brand. I know, Federico, I think out of the three of us, are you the only one who owns any Beats products? I don't own any.
Multiple Beats products, even.
Multiple Beats
yeah.
products. So why? Like, is Apple doing a good job at keeping that brand separate enough? Like, what's your feel on the Beats landscape right now?
I think they've done a pretty good job at having some features from what they've been doing on iOS and on the watch sort of trickle down into the Beats product line, which I kind of see as two things going on. One of them is, of course, keeping the brand identity and the mass appeal for people of people can recognize Beats. It's still got huge presence, at least when I walk around Rome and I see people wearing Beats.
Yep. It's a huge brand that doesn't have any of the negative connotations.
Exactly. So it's still kind of
either.
separate, and actually, a lot of folks don't even know it's owned by Apple. I think.
Exactly, right? Like it stands for itself.
Kind of like
good and bad,
and maybe even more than Instagram as a separate thing from Facebook. Almost, I see some parallels there. But really, what I think Apple is doing here is they're almost treating the Beats products as a test bed for some features that later maybe they will become part of the main Apple products. So, for example, they've been doing the W1 chip in the Beats X, in the Studio 3. They've been doing Siri integration on the Studio 3, which I bought at WWDC, and I've been loving them. It works really, really well. They've slightly improved the noise cancellation in the Studio 3. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if both, if the Studio 3, for example, is Apple testing the idea of a better audio chip and better Siri and noise cancellation in an over-ear headphone product. Maybe in the future could inform making actual Apple HeadPods or whatever that thing is going to be called. So the idea of, and also the fact that Beats products are, it's not like one single Beats accessory. It's a line of products. And so the idea of having multiple AirPods versions and having the separation between AirPods and headphones, I think, having Beats is probably informing Apple in how to deal with separating different product lines and having these custom technologies such as the W1 chip and in the future maybe the W2 or W3 becoming part of these tiny devices that can be either earbuds or what's the name of the on-ear headphones such as the Solo and the over-ear such as the Studio. So I think it's interesting that it's still a separate thing for marketing purposes, but also maybe from a technological point of view, it also helps.
So apparently Apple had planned to launch these in 2018, but had some problems in development, and they're now being targeted for a 2019 release for these over-ear headphones.
That's so weird for modern Apple. I can't believe they would have a product.
Well, it's better than them announce it and then not ship it.
It's true.
Right? I have no problem with them having problems and it not being delayed. I don't care about that.
If they don't tell the date. Rest in peace, AirPower.
Mm-hmm. Like for the point of that, they're like, yes, I've made my opinions on that kind of thinking quite clear in the past. But with these, it's like these aren't a thing that are late as such because it's not a defined timeline right? Like it's a brand new product, right? So it's kind of is what it is. If they're having problems developing a brand new product, I kind of don't care. I'm interested to see what they end up doing, though. Now, the Bloomberg article says nothing more about this about HomePod other than saying in the intro that it's being worked on for 2019. Like no details, just a new HomePod, like which isn't really saying much. And of course, as has become our way, if a rumor keeps popping up, we like to decide to make some predictions about it. So considering we've seen a bunch of this stuff in the past a couple of times, and it looks like it's going to be pretty long term, we're going to make, in round robin style, in traditional round robin
Thank you for
style,
doing that.
some predictions. No problem. Some predictions based on the potential for Apple's future line of audio products after this break. I want to thank Hover for their support of this show today. Building your online identity is so important. It's never been more important. It continues to be very important. And with Hover, you find the domain name that shows the world that exactly who you are and what you're passionate about. That's what I like about Hover. Their tools let you do it. So you have an idea. You're like, oh, I want to make a website about corgis. I don't know why that came into my head, but it did. Corgis. You know, like the little dog that the Queen has? Corgis. And you're like, I want to make a corgi website. And you go to Hover and you just type the word corgi in, and they will give you a bunch of domain options. So you can choose whatever's available and you can get something. Because they have so many options these days, you can pick the domain that best serves what you want to do. The great thing about Hover as well, one of the things that I love about them is they let you keep your domain separate from your hosting. So you never get stuck with one service that doesn't meet your needs. Hover is also really good for email. Like I was thinking about this recently. Like I heard an ad on a podcast that I listened to, and it was like somebody who was doing a service of some kind, and it was kind of like a listener was buying an ad. And in the ad, they used like such and such at yahoo.com. And I was like, no, like you sound so bad, right? Like if you are a professional trying to sell a professional service, even if you don't want a website, get a personalized email address, right? Like I have a couple of domains that I barely ever use, but I want them for the email address. So when I put it on a business card or I tell it to somebody, I have a professional email address that isn't routed through iCloud or isn't routed through Hotmail or Outlook or whatever. Like I think that it's really great to have that professionalism. That's also part of your identity online. It's not just the website, but can also be your email. Something I will let you know about for all aspiring and experienced entrepreneurs. Hover wanted us to tell you that they are a proud sponsor of something called the Fireside Conference. It's an off-the-grid, invite-only event that takes place just north of Toronto the week after Labor Day. The conference is packed full of interesting people, enthusiasts of technology like yourselves, startups and VCs and people in the industry and more. You can find out more at firesideconf.com. And remember, if you want to show the world what you're passionate about, Hover is there to help you make that first step. Go to hover.com/connected and get 10% off your first purchase. That's hover.com/connected. Right now, go there, get 10% off your first purchase, and support this show. Thank you to Hover for their continued support of Relay FM. So, round robin style, because I created the round robin today, I get first pick. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make a bunch of predictions about AirPods and HeadPods and HomePod about over the next, I reckon, up until the end of 2019. So we're going for some real nice long-term stuff here. Some things that we think that Apple might do with their audio-based products. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say AirPods to gain more controls via touch actions. This is what we were speaking about a minute ago. It feels like an inevitable thing to me that you would be able to at least do something more than tapping to access some kind of action on the AirPod. It just feels like something that people wanted for a long time, and even if it isn't something as nice as like gently stroking it to change the volume, at least just being able to touch or get an option to touch the AirPod to pause rather than tap, that would be real nice. I also, I was very careful with my picks here to not make them too complicated. Every one of my picks had like 2 sentences, and I brought them down to 1 sentence because I know I've been burned by that in the past.
That's where you get.
That's where I always just ruin myself by like being like touch actions like this. No, not in the actual pick. The actual pick is AirPods to gain more controls via touch actions. That's the pick.
I'm going to go with a similar, simple pick, and one that I think would fit in. I already talked about it. I think it would fit well with the other Beats products and everything else Apple does. At least one more color option comes to AirPods. I'm not even saying what color, but just at least one more option. I think people would like choices. I think people could use it as a fashion accessory. Apple uses this on all other sorts of products. I think it would be swell.
Yeah, I think the only reason they didn't get it the first time was because they couldn't make enough of them.
They could barely make
so
them
just
in
did
white.
one color option.
Yeah.
So I feel like at this point they should be good enough at building these things that they could at least have a black one or a gold one or whatever. Or space gray would probably be right. They're not going to make black, it'll be space gray. Whatever color space gray will take.
I'm going with
Gigi, what you got?
the AirPods line is split in two. So I don't know if it's a base version and a pro version. I don't care about the name, but there's going to be two versions, and the base one gets a small price drop.
Ooh,
Yeah.
you did an and. And is always tricky in these predictions.
I'm gonna risk it this time. So yeah, the line gets split in two versions, and the base one is slightly cheaper than it currently is.
I'm going to go with a HomePod pick. I think that the next HomePod in 2019 will be a mini HomePod. I think the HomePod as it is probably not going to change for a while. Like, I don't know how much more they could do in like a year or 18 months or something to that piece of hardware that is desperately needed to it. When if they had a mini HomePod, something that was cheaper, something that was easier to put in more rooms, I think would be ultimately a better product for them to make, like a $99 version, which is just this little guy with nice speaker, and you can maybe power it on battery power so you can take it outside or whatever. But I think that a mini HomePod in 2019 would be a welcome product, and I think is their most likely next version of the HomePod.
I don't know how I feel about that one, but I guess we'll
Why?
see. I just don't know if they could. Their whole thing was, right, it sounds so great because we packed all this technology in it. And if we know anything from like the Google devices or the Echo devices or any other like regular non-smart speaker, is that when you go down in size, it's hard to get that quality and volume out of it. And maybe Apple could do it, but I'd be very interested to see how that device sounded compared to the regular HomePod and how they pitched that.
But like it's a different pitch that wasn't it, right? Like it sounds great and it's so small, not like it fills the room. Like they can make a nice sounding small speaker. Like they exist, right? Like remember those like Jambox Delios, whatever they're called?
I still have one, yeah.
They were fine. You can make a decent speaker that's small. But then the pitch is that it sounds good and it's small, like rather than it sounds good and it fills the room. I don't know.
So I'm gonna go with a HomePod price drop. And
You're going to put a time frame on that?
No, however long this round robin is good for.
Well, it's up until the end of 2019.
There you go.
I mean, I feel like by the end of this year, I reckon holiday season, the HomePod gets a drop.
I'll give it another year. I'll say before the end of 2019. I can't imagine they're selling in huge numbers. I think the price has a lot to do with that. And I just think that Apple may need to make an adjustment there. So
I think it's too expensive.
It is
for what it is.
I think it is too.
What is it? What is it still?
It's like $9.99. No, it's $3.49. Yeah, Federico knows he's bought 6.
No, I have only 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I will go with a very specific one. I think that Shortcuts, the app, will gain new AirPlay 2 actions to play audio on specific HomePods. So I think Shortcuts will have native AirPlay 2 actions so that you can create your own custom shortcuts to have certain playlists or songs or podcasts play on individual speakers, which may include HomePods and, of course, other AirPlay 2 speakers. So AirPlay 2 actions is something that I really want to see in the future of Shortcuts. I don't know if the first version of the app will have them, but I think by the end of next year, Shortcuts will have native AirPlay 2 automation. It's a very specific one, I told you.
That is incredibly specific. but I appreciate your specificity. I think that Apple will create some kind of new noise cancellation technology. I think that they will have a thing, their Apple version of a whatever it is, right? Good or bad. It doesn't need to be good or bad, but like I think they will do something where they say, and you want to know how we get noise cancellation into these AirPods? It's because we create this thing, and they have this whole thing that they have done that goes into the AirPods and the HeadPod, or whatever, about some way that they've enhanced everything we've ever thought about when it comes to noise cancellation, like they did. What's it called? Stereoscopic. What is that thing? That 3D sound, whatever they call that, the HomePod nonsense, where it's not stereo, but it's that other thing. It's the same idea.
They're not gonna call this noise cancellation. They're gonna call it with some fancy name like quiet time or something like that.
Yeah, or like active room detection sound noise. Like.
Well,
that?
We could workshop in that. We mentioned this earlier.
Apple Talk.
That's a different thing.
No.
Mike, you and I both dislike noise cancellation. I think for the same reason.
Yep.
It makes me sick. Like it makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, it makes me feel nauseous.
Yeah. And so I hope that whatever they do either doesn't do that, but I'll be shocked because I'm extremely sensitive to that sort of thing. So I just hope it's optional. That I don't want this in all AirPods. I don't want this in all headphones. Put it as a high-end option like the rest of the market, and let me continue to use AirPods without it forever, please.
Or even then, let me toggle, right? Let me, because there might be other things I want in products that have this, but let me not use it.
So mine, I'm curious if you guys are going to allow this, but it's a better incorporation of Apple News into the audio ecosystem, like especially into the HomePod, I think, where right now you can tell it to play the news, and you can pick between a couple of different partner, Fox, NPR, etc. And I think there's a real rise, and I'm selfish because I host one of them, but there's a real rise in like these super short, like minute, 2-minute audio updates. We have one called Subnet, and I just wonder if there's a way to make that more of like a pronounced feature in the HomePod, or even in Siri and what it does with audio, just so you could say, hey, tell me the news, and you could have it string together several different sources, or even from like a marketing perspective, like some sort of push of like news and audio being together, because it's a real important little corner of podcasting and audio production. And I think Apple would do well to sort of flesh that out a little bit. With the Echo, you can say, I want to play NPR, then I want to play Subnet, then I want to play something else. And you can kind of fake that with like a playlist and podcasts, but it's kind of clunky. Apple's doing a big push on Apple News. We didn't get to talk about it this week, but they're busy doing Apple News stuff. And I'd like to see Apple News and Siri Audio HomePod stuff become closer together somehow.
I mean, I'm happy to let you have it because I don't see it happening. So, like, if I'm playing to win, then you can have that pick, because I don't really see that as a thing that they would spend severe marketing time on, other than just like a podcast app feature, which is not necessarily geared around a specific thing for their audio products. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's two different things. Like, if the podcast app gets something like this, you didn't get that.
Well, if you get to control it with Siri, I do.
No, because that's Siri. It's not.
No, but
it's
Siri
not
and the
these
HomePod,
things.
it's all like one thing. Like it's all
right. No, but like if they stand there and they're like, "Here's this new feature for Siri,"
yeah,
right, and then they demo
We'll see.
the Siri feature, I think that's very different to like it works on the AirPods. Like that's two different things.
see.
We will adjudicate that when the time comes, but I don't think you're going to get that one. Federico, do you want to finish off the round? Do you want to round out this Robin?
My final one is, again, a specific one. I'm going to say that the headpods will be...
that name cracks me up every time.
They will be wireless only, and they will have no headphone jack, and they will charge either via Lightning or USB-C. So it's a bunch of different things all at once.
What if they go truly wireless only?
You have to buy an AirPower.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like no headphones Apple releases past Beats. Like any new thing, I think is going to be wireless only, like the AirPods or the Beats X. I think that's I think that's a lock. The Beats X uses Lightning now. My wife has a pair. She likes them. She came on the show and talked about them. So I think there's even precedent there. So I think while this may be specific on the surface, I'm not sure you're really saying much that isn't true now, which is interesting. So I think that you could be on track with this.
There you go. We'll see.
I hope they don't call it
see
HeadPods. That's the worst name.
Best name ever. HeadPods.
Pods.
It's the best name for our purposes here. Bad name for a product.
Yeah. If you want to read show notes this week, you can do so over on the website relay.fm/connected/199. Remember, we're taking next week off, but I'll be back on July 11th for episode 200 of Connected, which is very exciting. We want to thank our sponsors this week, Pingdom, Smile, and Hover. And of course, I want to thank my co-host. You can find Federico Viticci on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci, and he is the editor and chief of MacStories.net. He's not just the editor. He's not just the chief. He is both. Very powerful man.
He's also in.
Yeah, the editor's in the chief. It's very complex. You also have, of course, Myke Hurley. You can follow Myke on Twitter as IMYKE, and Myke hosts a bunch of shows over at relay.fm. So if you like Connected, I bet you'll find something else that you like there. You can find me on Twitter as ISMH, and I write and make YouTube videos under the name 512 Pixels. And until, well, I don't know when you're coming back, Myke, so whatever. But Federico, until next time I speak to you, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Adios.
See you in August, suckers. Bye.